was like, holy cow, Bambi.
Did he leave his skate guards on?
You got to be kidding me. Like 2 other 3 guys that played in the band. I know you got more money than...
Yeah, I was going to say.
Like...
Is it a hockey?
So, we were playing here. Episode 20, here we are.
2-0.
Started in January. You were on the suspension or just off it, or no? You just started.
I was just starting
somewhere in there. So it seems like decades ago.
Yeah.
But when we started this thing, it was pretty raw, and production's gotten really, really good, and we've done some really
good things. I'm really proud of where it's become.
We've had some fun, off air talking about some different things, and we've talked about, Dr. Sharp. Dr. Sharp
what a beauty.
He is a beauty. We've talked about, Will.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell the story. So he comes. Will's a new guy, and he comes into my office, and one of our maintenance guys, great guy, and good-hearted man, and just full of love. But he comes in my office.
Yeah.
And he's looking out my window because it oversees the park, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to hit you. But he's like, "Hey, man, is that a tiger out there?" I'm like, "Yeah, man," because you know me.
Yeah.
I'm always honest.
Yeah.
And
never
serious and all that good stuff, right? I'm like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "No, really?" I'm like, so I look. I'm like, "Yeah, man. That's the zoo wraps around there." He's like, "No way, man." I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "But if you go to the other office where Amanda's office, or Stephen and Sam are, so you get a better view and you can see it wrap around." And not a chance did I think this guy was going to buy what I was feeding him. I thought he was going to come out my office door and make a hard right and go out the door, like anybody else would. So anyway, makes a hard left and goes to the office. And he goes in there, and I knew that these 2 guys were in there. And I was hoping that he was going to do what he did, and he did. He's like, "Hey, man, do you guys see the tiger over in the park there?" And they're like, "Huh?" "Yeah, Heo said that if I come over here, I can get a better view of it." And they're like, "What?" And he goes, "That's a flipping dog, man. That's a park. The zoo doesn't run." So anyway, all 3 of them come to my office, and I'm like, at this point, I'm like, "Dude, I don't even know what to tell you, because why would you believe me that there's a flipping?" But getting to know him. He seems to be gullible in many manners, but he's a great guy. Yeah. Great guy. So
Dr. Sharp, a good guy. Seems like you could trick him once or twice.
100%. So we're giving Dr. Sharp a break this week. I had something on him, and I wrote it down.
We'll figure it
out.
But
I can't remember.
I'm going to spend some time with him tomorrow, so I'll find something.
Yeah, there'll be something so we can chirp it. And folks that are listening, this isn't good heart. We're not demeaning it. It's just a lot of fun that we have here, and just to keep things light. we did the zoo, the bug eating contest this weekend.
I liked it.
I did too.
Ants, water bugs, scorpions, all sorts of good. Oh, you didn't have any of that.
The
water bug was tough.
You're a good sport in many ways.
Yeah, I try.
Because, again, I'm very upfront and honest, and I don't put people in weird situations.
Never.
And when they asked us to do this bug thing, I said, "Yeah, sure, we'll do it." Which I'm
all for it.
Believe me when I tell you this. My wife and I had a conversation about you last night, and not in a weird way. But like that, you're just you're a rhino, and you're always willing to do whatever is needed to be done, and that's kind of what we all are a part of this organization, right? And
for sure.
She's like, "You put him in," I'm like, "I'm not going to put him in a situation where it's he's not going to do it, or not that I would do." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's
stuff you wouldn't do, but. I won't say no. So.
Yeah, right. And I'm the boss, so it's
So it's fair game.
Yeah, it's fair game, right? But we were gonna do the chip, whatever the chip challenge thing, and we had a plan. And believe it or not, I'm the one that pulled the pin on it. It was my idea.
Yeah, it was his idea. He pulled the pin, and then we opened it to smell it last week after the podcast, and I decided to eat the whole thing. So.
And you almost died.
It was hot in my stomach.
But when you
my mouth was fine. It was my stomach though. It was not.
Yeah,
it didn't settle.
I took a little dab of the powder. And I'm like, oh my! And it was instant.
It was
instant
hot.
Fire, man.
Yeah, it was hot.
I couldn't imagine. So we somehow we get roped into doing contests, and we do all this crazy, stupid stuff. And I'm usually behind it. This time I wasn't. We have a bet with I have Edmonton. You have
No, you have New York.
Oh, I have New York. Who do you
I
have?
have Dallas.
You have Dallas.
He has
He's got New
Florida,
York.
and he had
Oh,
Colorado.
yeah. So he's out.
So he's out.
But so the loser, who doesn't win the cup, does not, if one of our teams wins, the other guy eats the chip. So we got thrown into that. So I would anticipate that coming up here sooner than later. And then somebody throws in gummy bears today, when these hot little gummy bears in place of the chip that's 10 times hotter. I'm like, why would we even do that?
Yeah. I already did the chip, so
Yeah, which you're cheaper.
I'm out. I'm out. If Dallas,
If I lose, I'm going to throw some alternatives in there if there's a way out for me.
like what, whipped cream or vanilla
Shave
ice
my head
cream
again.
or shave your eyebrows.
No.
Yeah.
I'll eat the chip. Well, maybe. You can't even see my eyebrows anyway.
That's a good point. I just noticed.
So, yeah, I might do that. But you can put them on anyway. People disguise themselves as things these days anyway, I could put some
it happens
eyebrows
more
on.
often than you think.
Fair enough. So the zoo, that was fun. KTSM was there, some cool chefs.
Did we? I didn't even check the news. Did we make
You know
the
what?
news?
I don't know. Did we get on it?
Yeah.
Did they show it? Cool, man.
I meant to watch.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
I
It was
enjoyed
cool.
it.
It was nice. We were in the amphitheater. It was nice and shady. There was a nice breeze.
So those that are listening, if you haven't been to the zoo, go to the zoo. We got.
Yeah.
I went and saw the rhino on Sunday.
Yep.
Which was really cool. I don't know, they said it's small, but to me it's big,
It's
and
pretty big.
I think it's 7 years old, and it's into its mating age. So they're supposed to be bringing 2 females in, from my understanding. So I think there's going to be some baby rhinos over there sooner
like
than later,
that.
which
That's
would be really
cool.
cool. Got to see
Yeah.
the orangutan. It was a cool experience at the zoo.
Yeah, it was
and
good.
all
It was
that
fun.
good stuff.
I would like to throw my name in the hat for cooking next year. So El Paso Zoo, if you're watching, I'm in.
And what a great partner.
Yeah.
They did a really, really good job. And, I know we got some stuff coming up with the zoo that we're going to be sharing, whatever.
And it was funny.
Working with
The
each other.
first time I'd ever been to the El Paso Zoo was last weekend, out of the however many years that I've been around. And then I was there 3 times in the last week, and now I'm going again on next Friday to my daughter's field trip. So
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm a zoo goer now.
You're a zoo, yeah, right? Well, that's cool. So kind of switching gears, getting into the hockey scene, obviously our seasons are over, and, the Robertson Cup, the championship series is held on Tuesday, which is today. This is going to be shown Thursday, so on Tuesday. So
Are we taking bets?
probably we'll do that off the air. I think
That's fair.
I'm certainly going for the South.
Well, yeah,
we got to
of course.
represent
I
the
think-
South. Even though Clint Millimock, the coach of Maryland, he's a longtime buddy of mine. But I got to go for the South, man.
If Lone Star plays the way that they did in the first game that I was on the bench with the NA team at Lone Star's going to smoke them.
Yeah.
But
Who knows? And there's
see.
2 different styles of play, right?
yeah, totally different. Maryland looked good. I watched all the games this weekend.
Yeah.
They looked pretty good too. So it's going to be a good game.
Clint does a good job. Obviously, coach from Brahmas does good in Wildfang. He's a character, right? But it'll be good. So those that are out there listening, well, I guess the game's going to be passed, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm going
It's
for
gonna
Lone
be good.
Star. Who are you going for?
I'm going for Lone Star.
So they're both for Lone Star. So it'll be interesting. Camp's coming up. We've talked about that last week.
Yep.
But you're going to where this weekend?
And heading to Denver for the CCM showcase. I'm looking forward to that. Always good. There's a ton of scouts, ton of kids. All I think it's 04 through 09s this year.
Right.
So a big, group of kids, and I think there's like 500 kids that come, and it'll be a good time. I'm excited. It's a lot of hockey.
A lot of hockey.
but it's good. And there's a lot of talent, so I'm hoping to get some kids into Rhino country from there and see what happens.
Yeah,
But
for
it's
sure.
gonna be good.
And that's what the camps are for. Obviously, some kids that don't get drafted or not tendered or whatever. It's the way for them to showcase their abilities that might not have an advisor or whatever the case is, but just another way because there's so many eyes on you.
Yeah, there's over 125 I think last year.
Yeah.
So
there's
there's
a lot.
probably gonna be more this year.
Lots. Yeah, for sure. And they put on a good deal.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's
Really,
great.
really good deal. And then after that, we have our Futures Camp here.
Yep. The 7th through the 9th of June.
And we got there's a handful of local kids.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Which is
I'm
great
excited.
that have signed up for that. And, we've always talked in the past, like Herm and I, always looking in our youth program, like who would be one of these
Yeah.
kids. And it's nice to see some fruition that
That
these
they're
kids are
gonna-
actually going through and
yeah.
coming up and have the possibility of playing for the Rhinos one day, whether that's in the NA or the NA3 or just being part of it, man.
This year, next year, a couple years down the road, it's awesome.
It's a
great.
futures camp.
Yeah.
So chances are not now
Yeah.
for some of the local kids because they're younger, but hey, this is the way to
But
get
now
on
they're
the
on the radar. Now we know,
And that's what it's
okay,
about,
I can,
man.
we know each other and,
And this camp is going to be extremely like I really liked what we did last year.
It was fun.
And it kind of it came to we modified it as it was happening, so to speak, just before.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know.
Yeah.
Because the numbers when the camp anyway, we modified it.
Yeah.
And the feedback that we got from the players, the parents, was unbelievable.
Us as coaches loved it. It's much better than sitting up in the stands for 4 games and just watching kids play. Yeah. That's so much better.
You're hands on. You get to actually implement, and you get to talk. You get to interact with the kids, how they are.
Blow the whistle and say, "Hey, this is what I would have done differently," and coach, and hey, that was great. And you're there, and that's not just sitting there.
You're not number
people's
77
names off
orange.
Yeah, you're Billy or Michael or whatever.
Yeah. So that's really, it'll be good. I'm looking forward to that. And then after that, I know you're coaching a couple teams in the Chowder Cup.
Yep.
I know there's a couple local kids coming on that as well.
Yep. And we're still filling that. So there's a couple spots if anyone's looking, junior experienced players preferably, but definitely looking to fill a couple spots on that in Boston and at the end of July. And it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a good one. It's huge. There's a lot of good skill there. A lot of good scouts, colleges that come out and take a look, and it'll be a good time. I'm really excited.
That's good. Yeah, that's always a fun time. And then we get into our main camp for the NA. Then from there, we narrow down to our training camp, and then both teams will report, which we got to go over once we kind of get the schedule done. Which, who knows? Yeah, but we'll go over that, and we got some different things that we want to do. We talked about it yesterday a little bit, possibly doing a conditioning camp. 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out, whatever it is, for some local kids going. We want to do different things.
Yeah. The camp era of going to 1 million pre-drafts has got to be nearing its end, and there's got to be something better. And I think we're slowly starting to implement the better side, where you're getting something out of it, and it's not just $700 in 4 games and you're out of there.
100%. And we're kind of shifting gears a little bit, and I'm just obviously want to adapt with the times and kind of be the front runners on things that we do.
Yeah, for sure.
That's one of them, and we got a great staff, and looking forward to the upcoming season, even though this just ended.
Yeah, I feel like it's already almost Christmas.
Right. Yeah. So that's that. So you take off, when are you leaving? Thursday?
Friday.
Yeah. And then you'll be back
Sunday.
So it's kind of in and out. Get your games in and work 18 hours over there and do your thing.
Yeah. Those camps, especially at the CCM, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And usually by Saturday afternoon, you have a pretty good idea of who you need to talk to. Obviously, can't talk to everybody, but by Saturday night, you've talked to most of the guys. So Sunday is kind of just hey, I want to offer you a contract, or hey, come to main camp, and it's kind of just the follow up time, and then so there's it's a long, stressful weekend, but it's nice to be able to get in, do your job, and then get out of there and not no headaches, no hiccups. So
it'll be a lot of fun, and I know you like traveling and scouting, and you guys do a good job with it, and it's a grind, man.
No, it is.
Not just for the players, but for the coaching staff.
It's a long day.
Events that get put on, it's a grind for sure.
It's fun, but it's a long day.
So we'll certainly talk about that next week.
For sure.
What comes up, and we'll certainly talk about that. And we have a special guest coming on the podcast this week, Lane Frank. He's a local celebrity. He's still in high school. Has his own podcast show. Has a radio talk show.
Is his podcast ranked higher than ours?
No, bro.
Are you sure?
Yeah, man.
Can we Goog that?
Ours is number 1 in the nation, bro. Just ask me and I'll tell you. We're climbing,
20
man.
episodes. We're killing it.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
Just ask me, I'll tell you, man. 75
I know.
goals in Pup A, bro. Who's done better?
Wouldn't put it past you.
No, it's true.
I said I wouldn't put it past you.
I'm not lying to you, man.
I know.
75 in Pup A.
You haven't lied one time on this episode.
Never. And I'm not about to now.
Yeah.
But Lane Frank, he's got his own podcast, his own radio show. Yeah, well, he's still in high school. He got started in his basement. Not his basement. I said that to in his basement, but in a studio in his home. And he really, really liked it.
That's awesome.
And when he was on, you guys are going to hear the interview. He's an extremely well-spoken young man.
Does he want a producer job? Because I think we're hiring.
Yeah, man. We're going to pretty soon if Biz doesn't get back to us. But anyway, this young man wants to get into the broadcasting
That's
field.
awesome.
And it was
Do you
great
want
to
to
have him
focus
on.
on sports, or is it just
Sports?
Sports.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he's got some cool. I'm not gonna give it away, but the interview talks a lot about what he's doing, what he's done, and where he wants to be, and just
Awesome.
the support from his family and all around it. He's
That's
got it
cool.
going on, man.
I'm excited to watch it.
So stay tuned for that because it'll be good. So, but anyway, Sherm, we're gonna cut this off, and good luck this weekend.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
We'll get back at her next week, man.
Sounds good.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here with Lane Frank, El Paso native, Coronado High School, tennis superstar, maybe not, and then host of Schoolyard Sports podcast. Welcome to the show, bud.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Finally, we've been trying to get you on for, it seems like forever.
About a few months now.
Few months between our schedule, your schedule, and whatever in between. Here we are.
Very glad we were able to do this.
Yeah,
Talk some
man,
sports,
it's
talk some
awesome.
hockey.
It's great. You're taking the time out of your day. I know it's school day today, but you finished a little early, and here we are, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
So, how did you get into what you're doing? And I know you want to major in broadcasting and all that good stuff, but how did you get into it?
So how I got into pretty much doing my podcast was, it was during the pandemic, not much to do. I always liked to talk about sports, but I never really, I would go on like rants with my brothers or my parents, and they'd be like, okay, now go in front of a camera, maybe see if you'll like that, maybe try to start your own thing. I really liked it. I did a few episodes of my own where I was editing it. And then my parents said, if you really want to do this, let's take it to the next level. I have a great team behind me, DB Podcast. They do all the production, editing. And I've been doing the content once a week, every week for the past 4 years.
And for a lot of listeners out there, we started this, our Crash Course Hockey Podcast in January. We've been wanting to do it for several years, and we just finally, just either we're going to do it or we're not. There is a lot of work that goes into it. There is no doubt about it.
Podcasting not the easiest thing, but I feel like once you get the rails of it, it's really fun.
We talked about having a script. I'm the type of guy that if I have a script, I'm going to read about the first two sentences, and then that's it, and it's out the door, and then we just kind of go where the flow goes. How do you work it?
That's kind of how I work too. Maybe I'll have bullet points, but I'm not going to write down full sentences, full scripts, because that's when I feel like things fall apart. That's when you stutter. That's when you're not doing so great with how you're talking. I like this, more of a free-flowing, not too many notes type of podcast.
Yeah, that's good. It seems it's better for a conversation. Just have a conversation. It's more genuine. It's more real. And then, we talked about you doing it in your home theater. So that's the real deal right there, ladies and gentlemen. El Paso native, young kid, wanting to make it big, starting in his own home theater with mom and dad's support and brothers. So that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I kind of taken over that home theater for the past 4 years. Haven't really been able to watch anything in there. Don't know if my parents and my brothers have loved that, but it's a great studio. When people come over, they like to see it. It's fun.
Right on. Well, I can probably, being a father, if you were doing something for 4 years and I didn't like it, it wouldn't have been for 4 years. It might have been
Exactly.
for a couple months. So I think you're probably safe for another year or two.
Hopefully then maybe they can get that theater back.
Get some sponsors, get your own studio, when you make it big. Don't forget about us little guys, eh? You know
good
what I
stuff
mean?
here.
So tennis, that's your passion.
Definitely
it
to play.
It is a sport to play.
And watch, yep.
And you like watching it as well?
I do like watching tennis. Not my favorite sport to watch. I love watching football, even hockey in there, but
Right.
tennis, great sport to play.
Great sport. Have you been to like Wimbledon or anything cool like that?
I've never been to Wimbledon, but I've been to the U.S. Open past
Awesome.
2 years. It's just a great experience being able to walk around. It's in New York, but it's not cold out yet. It's super nice out, about 85 degrees. Get to watch some great matches. I love it there.
Yeah, for sure. I used to play tennis as a younger guy too. I wasn't very good at it.
Okay.
I'm not a guy with a lot of patience, and I get frustrated
Tennis-
very, very easy. That's probably why I play hockey. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I like to take my frustrations out on people rather than the ball.
You got to have a lot of patience in tennis. Not really in hockey. Hockey, it's kind of fast-paced. Things can change at any moment. Tennis is more steady, patience. I like it.
For sure, for sure. So Coronado, you're a sophomore. You got one more year to go. Obviously, people in the school know you do a podcast and you do your weekly radio show as well. Are you kind of a celebrity there?
I wouldn't say I'm a celebrity, but people definitely love to talk about my podcast, know about my podcast, say with my interviews with maybe Lil Yachty, Lil Durk, Andy Reid, Michael Phelps. They'll ask me about it. They'll say, "Oh, how's the podcast going? Maybe how's tennis going?" Definitely, people like to talk about it.
Do you have any merch out there?
I have hats out there for Schoolyard Sports and a few hoodies. May start making more clothes soon. We'll see.
I think that's where it's at, man. Because we've always talked. We're gonna get merch and all this good stuff. Yeah, we're part of the Rhino thing, right? It's owned and ran by the Rhinos. We've talked about doing merch, and a lot of people have asked for like cups, putting some merch on there, keeping my ugly face off it, and just putting the logo on there with something we might do. But I think that's important, man.
Yeah, Schoolyard Sports hats. People always ask me, how can I get one? Right now, it's always just been friends and family for the past 4 years, but we're making new ones. I like it.
That's good, man. So, as going through your social media, and obviously you've seen the little Yachty, and where I told you we're going to talk about Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. How was that?
That was a great experience. Andy Reid, kind of a guy you think isn't going to be the exact same as he is on TV. He seems like the fluffy, nice, great guy.
Fluffy, I like that.
Great guy on TV, but he's the sweetest, the best, and really just knowledgeable coach out there. He was great to have an interview with. Maybe my favorite.
Really, eh?
Yeah, he was.
Because he obviously on TV
he's authentic.
when he's coaching, there's a portrayal of him. Like, he's just hard nosed, and most of the football coaches in any real sport is that way. But you get him away from that kind of environment.
Some people think, he seems nice off the field. Maybe he's not always nice off camera. No, this guy, knowledgeable, authentic. I love it with Coach Reid.
Did you ask him about the quarterback?
I did ask him about Patrick Mahomes. He tells me superstar. He was really just one of the best talent funds I've ever had in my career.
I'm not a Mahomes fan.
Really?
No, not at all. And I told you we're going to bring this up.
Is that off how his play style is? You prefer the more traditional Tom Brady style quarterback?
I'm probably going to go off a little bit of jealousy.
Okay.
Because he's young. He's got a ton of money. He's got a nice everything that a guy could possibly want. But his voice, like Kermit the Frog, he just kills me, man.
He's definitely a new superstar where it's like, it's different things to him because maybe some people don't like his look. I think his voice is probably the funniest thing about him. Kind of builds up his character because he tries to be a leader, and then you hear that voice and it's like, oh,
it's like Mike Tyson.
This pregame speech is different.
Right? Yeah, no kidding.
Right, yeah, Mike Tyson.
Like, seeing Mike Tyson, you're not going to go near him. And then when he talks, it's like, yeah, I could probably go near this guy.
Exactly. That's funny.
But we interviewed the coaches earlier on the podcast. We talked about the Kansas City Chiefs. We brought up Mahomes. So you're a basketball guy, and I could be reading this wrong. So there was I don't know which game he was at, but it was in the last couple of days. There was somebody made a basket or a 3-pointer, and players are running up the court, and he stuck his hand out for a high five. Did you see that?
I'm trying to think of what game you're talking about.
It would have been just either yesterday or the day before.
Okay.
But he got ghosted, and I was like, yes. They just,
that could happen. Maybe
there, you know what I mean? And I was like, good for you.
Maybe he's trying to do it to the opposing crowd, but some players like to fire up the crowd. Some players, you could see last week one of the players gets suspended for the first 4 games next season for throwing a ball at a fan in the crowd in his last game.
Did he just toss it up, or did he rifle it?
No, he rifled it, and then they threw it back at him. He rifled it right back, kind of playfully, but he got suspended for that 4 games starting next season and a big fine.
That's one thing about the NBA, man. When guys get fined, they get fined pretty good.
Yeah, the NBA takes things very seriously, even with sports betting. They're trying to set examples with players. You break the rules, you're done. Examples of what they're trying to set.
And that's good. Like, when the fans are so close, they're on the court, and if something happened, I don't think there's enough security there to stop everybody from going on the court. You see it when there's a championship won, everybody rushes the court, but it's crazy, man.
You could think about Malice at the Palace a few years ago, and you have players going into the stands fighting
Ron Artest.
Yeah, you see some crazy things in the NBA. I think that's probably the closest fan to player environment you get because they're on the court with them, especially if you're courtside.
So who's your favorite basketball team?
My favorite basketball team, New York Knicks. I'm a big New York sports fan, like the Giants, like the Rangers. Definitely the Knicks to the NBA.
Is that because your family's from your dad's heritage is from New York?
Yeah, definitely. I don't really like Texas teams. We don't get that big pro market teams here in El Paso.
So you're riding on your dad's coattails is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. He's an Islanders fan. He's not a Rangers fan.
Yeah, so there is something bad about your dad. Then he's an Islander fan.
He's from Long Island, so he'll go for the Islanders, but I'll go for the Rangers, the Knicks, and the Mets.
Right on. Well, that's good, man. I've been to New York once. A couple years ago, my daughter plays hockey, and she had a camp out there, so we toured around New York, and what a beautiful place. And we went to Times Square and all that good stuff, and I was just amazed by really everything, including, just the way of life there. Just crazy.
People like to call it the Mecca, the Big Apple. It really is the Mecca
Big Apple, right?
For everything. Sports, culture, everything there in New York.
Well, we walked by Madison Square Garden, and we weren't able to go in; it was closed. But just being down there, it's incredible. Just you can just feel the vibe.
I've been to Madison Square Garden for both hockey and NBA games. I mean, it's incredible.
Which is better, NBA or hockey to watch?
I'll say this: it looks a lot bigger when you're there for a hockey game because a little bit more condensed. I think hockey was way more fun because you're right up on the rink. Basketball, slow paced.
Sure.
But hockey, you're right there. I mean, I love it.
A lot of people.
A lot of people.
A lot of people there. Well, that's good. So, Islander fan. I'm sorry. Sorry, Dad. I got to take a shot while I can. You know what I mean?
You got to take a shot down for being an Islander fan.
So, what is the best part that you do as far as your either your podcast or your talk show? What do you like doing the best?
I think what I love doing the best is when I watch these games and I'm so opinionated about it, I get a platform to talk about it and say what I want to say, let people hear what I have to say about it. And I just love talking about sports, voicing my opinion, giving my take out there.
That's good. And that's the true thing. It's your platform, and you can say what you want, and people can tune in and tune out.
Exactly.
If you like it, great. If not, tune in to somebody else.
I'll say before times, I'm like, okay, this is a bad take. Swipe off this if you don't want to hear it. But this is the truth. This is why I think right here.
Yeah. So, in the recent events in I guess, is there anything controversy that happened recently in basketball besides the guy getting suspended for 4 days?
So I'll say this right here. The NBA, it's a different system. I don't know if they have this in the NHL, a draft lottery. Do they have that in the NHL? Okay, so I'm thinking that the NBA should no longer have a draft lottery. So there was a team that had a 3% chance, the Atlanta Hawks, to get number one pick. They were in the play-in, which is the tournament to basically almost make the playoffs. They were a pretty good team all year. They have a solid roster, just a bad stretch down the way. And they ended up with the number one pick through the draft lottery. And a team that is the Detroit Pistons that won 14 out of 82 games ends up with the number 5 pick for the second straight year. Well, they had the second worst record last year and the worst record this year. Number 5 last year pick, number 5 this year pick. It's not a great way because these teams are going to get stuck in a rebuild forever. I don't love it. I don't know what the Hawks are going to do with this pick at number 1. I'm just not a big fan of the draft lottery in the NBA, MLB, or NHL.
Yeah. So do you think it should be like a reverse ladder?
I think it should be.
Last place gets first pick, yada, yada, yada?
I think it should be how it is in the NFL because in the NFL, a team can go have a terrible season, and then there's the generational quarterback prospect out there that they select, not the 7th worst team getting the number 1 pick right there. So that's what I think.
And that's a good point. The NHL is the same way with the lottery, and for years in the past, there would be a team, it's bottom of the barrel, and they got like an 80% chance of getting the first overall pick, like Edmonton, for instance. Now it's kind of catching up to them in a good way because they've had I don't know if it was like either 3 or 4 years in a row where they had number 1, and some of the number 1s, as you know, they pan out. Some are a bust.
McDavid panned out.
He panned out. There's a few guys, and there's also a few guys that are no longer on the roster that they moved. So
Exactly.
I don't know if there's a big difference between the first overall pick and the 5th overall pick because to be in the top 10 either way, you're probably pretty good.
So
Being honest, there's always a chance of you being a bust. Alexander Daig, for instance, he was number 1 overall pick for Ottawa Senators years and years ago. I don't even think he played a whole season, and he doesn't even play anymore.
It's ridiculous.
Just the bust. So, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, something I really like about the NHL draft that the MLB draft doesn't have. In the MLB draft, if you select a player at high school, college, and they decide to go back, you lose the rights to that player. But NHL, you can take a guy number 1, number 2 from college, and then go back to college for a year, and then once their season ends, they can go to that team. The rights stick with them.
So what are your thoughts on if you were selected by a team in the NHL? So let's just say I'm number 1 overall pick, and let's just say who do I dislike the most? Let's go with Ottawa.
Okay.
They pick me number 1 overall. I'm like, forget it. I'm not playing for you. Trade me. What are your thoughts on that?
I think any NHL player, any pro athlete should be grateful to be selected by any team, even if you're thrown in a terrible situation. If you're on a terrible team, be the guy that leads that team. If you're on a team that has a guy that's already at your position, learn from him, gain from him, and then be better than him, in my opinion. That's how it should work.
I agree with that 100%. So, NHL, I think if you're drafted entry level, you're 3 years. Tough it out for 3 years. And then move on.
You see guys get traded all the time, even when they get selected high. Jack Eichel, when he got selected by Sabres, then goes over to Vegas a few years later.
Have you heard of Eric Lindros?
Never heard of Eric Lindros.
So he was back in my day when, he was selected by, it was the Quebec Nordiques, I think it was back in that day. Okay. And he did not want to play for a Quebec team in Canada, and said, I'm not going to play for you. And that's what really started. And there was some trend to it. And, they got rid of him and traded him, whatever. But I remember that years and years ago, how much of a farce it was. You know, I agree with you 100%. If you're drafted by somebody, you should be honored. Figure it out.
I do think it's a bit different in hockey, though, because say you have an American-born player or Canadian-born player gets selected to an American team, and they said, no, I want to live in Canada. So many teams in Canada, why can't I just get selected by one of these teams, get traded to one of these teams? And then if you're from America, it's like, no, I've grown up here my whole life.
Right.
I'm not going to go over play for Edmonton, Calgary, any of these teams.
You know, yes, but I think it's a privilege to play any professional sport. You should be honored. You know, I know some of the biggest things, especially when it comes to salaries. Like if you sign a contract in Edmonton, you're getting paid Canadian dollars if that's the way it's negotiated.
It's different.
And then you're getting taxed a heck of a lot more than you would in the U.S. So
Sure.
there's arguments both ways, which I understand. But again, when you're making $3 million a year, does it really matter?
I mean, it's different when you're playing in Vancouver and you're playing with the Florida Panthers because taxes, players think differently. America, Canada.
Yeah, for sure. It would be definitely a situation I'd like to be part of. You know what I mean? Making those tough decisions.
You know,
But
get leverage on these teams.
right? You know what I mean? But we're not here. You know, I'm not. I wasn't fortunate enough to be in that situation. Hopefully, someday you are.
Hopefully, maybe in tennis, maybe if I'm even at going for a network, maybe I'll be hopefully have my show on a big network one day.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, don't forget us little people on your way up, man.
Of course. I mean, I love this podcast, love this rink,
Appreciate
love the
it.
Rhinos.
So we talked a little bit about you getting into the broadcasting, right? And obviously you're well spoken on the air. We have internet-based, you know, platform for our games. You know, it's I think we're probably top 3 in the league as far as viewers per game. We do it like Duke Keith is our broadcaster, you know, over the internet. He does a great job. I've known Duke for 25 years. When I played with the Buzzards, his first year calling a hockey game was my first year as a pro hockey player. Wow. And man, was he terrible. And I tell him that all the time.
People grow, though. That's how they get better.
He's really, really good at what he does. And if you were to talk to him about, you know, his first couple of years calling it with the Buzzards, I guaranteed he'd bring up this story. And I'm going to tell it right here, folks, the truth to the story. If you ask Duke, he twists a little bit. So we're going on a 21-day road trip, right? When we get on the bus, we get handed our per diem. So you're on we got something like $600-700. So I'm sitting at the back of the bus, and do you know Duke Keith?
I do know Duke
Yeah.
Keith.
He's
at the
green.
radio station every now and then.
He's green back then. He was really, really green.
Okay.
He still is kind of green.
Nice guy.
It's Duke, why don't you come back to the back of the bus, play some cards? He's like, yeah, man. So he comes to the back of the bus. I'm like, sit down, Duke. And so I explained to him what we're playing. I think we weren't even into Las Cruces, and he was probably down $200 or $300. And he
that's
was
the announcer. That's not even the player. They can't help you out, the team.
He was so mad. He's like, I'm done. I'm going back up in the bus. But when he tells the story, it seems like I took all his money. You know what I mean? I'm sure he's buffing up the story a little bit for audience view, right? But
Right.
the truth is, we took a couple $100 from him, and he never played cards with us again. But I bring that story up to Duke all the time. I'm like, hey, Duke, you want to play some cards? And then he has a few choice words for me. But he's a great individual, and he's helped us tremendously. But back to what I wanted to say is, you know, hopefully next year, if you want, you're more than welcome to come and jump on the radio. I'm sure Duke would help you. You know, he's not here for all the games because he has other commitments, but jump on in and just learn, man. Talk on the air and learn another sport.
I'd love to be the next Barry Melrose on air, whatever it might be.
You know, like, so I'm the president of the organization. I've really done everything here, including calling the games. So back when we were part of the Western States Hockey League, you know, I before I was moved in this position, I was the color guy. And I was a lot younger then. I was very, very more vocal in a borderline kind of way.
Was there an accident on there?
No, man, never an accident,
Okay.
man. It's internet. There's never an accident, right?
You got to go viral for the good reasons
So,
and the bad reasons. Both are good.
I remember it was a Saturday night, and I said a few choice things,
Happens to
all
the best
within
of us.
good fun,
You know, happens to the best of us on air.
right? So before the game, I get a text message from Corey Herman, who's the owner, who's also my best friend. He's like, hey, man, before you come and see me. I was like, shoot. I must have said something, and there's a complaint on me. So I was like, oh, well, I don't know what I said, but I would believe it if he told me. So I go in there, and he's like, sit down, man, I want to talk to you. I was like, oh, great. I'm getting fired from a volunteer job. You know what I mean? And then that's when he told me, I want you to come on full time, yada, yada, yada.
Wow.
But back then we used to say a lot of borderline stuff. And Duke, when he was calling the games, I would feed him information like, hey, Duke, that was number 37 that scored. Well, we didn't have a 37. And he would say, oh, scored by number 37. And I'd be rolling like, Duke, we don't even have a 37. But I post stuff like that on him.
It's good to have fun on air, not just
100%.
tight out boys. I mean, I think that's what's the best about some of these broadcasts, especially professionally. If you can be loose, have a good relationship with your partner in the booth, it's great.
And that's the thing. And, back then, it's changed a lot now, the game, and
Right.
it's a lot more professional, so to speak. And we are certainly much more professional on what we do as a whole organization. Some of the things we used to do back then, we probably couldn't get away with now. So I'm going to have to warn you about that, young man.
Might be different, though. I mean, I think if you pull that stuff out now, people might like it even more.
And right?
Because different. You don't see it anymore.
It is different. Well, we were certainly different. There's no doubt about that, especially with me on there, because I'm different in general, whether that's a good or bad thing. I'm just different.
It's fun to hear right there. I mean, I think a great person is not someone who's monotone on air, not someone who's just going to bring up the stats, bring up, oh, what a great pass right there. We know it's a great pass. Be funny about it. Bring up something interesting about it. I think that's why maybe you and Duke did great.
And that's one of the things that, I admire about Duke is he's certainly not a homer. Because it's very easy for the home team to have a home broadcaster and say, you know what I mean? And that's one thing I can honestly say Duke is not.
Okay.
And that's something that I can honestly say I wasn't. I was more anti-home team just to get away from that whole persona of home team favorite type thing.
That's something I like when I'm watching the broadcast, especially maybe a Mets broadcast. I like when the announcers have our team's back because you are the team's announcer. So have our back a little bit, maybe call out the refs a few times. But also, it's time to be critical sometimes of your own players, of your own team, which I think some
100%.
broadcasts do a great job at it.
100%. Even on our podcast, we talk about, usually we talk about the weekend that just happened and around the games and then what's coming up. And I'll sit here and talk about players like, where was this guy all weekend? He was invisible kind of thing, and that's the reality.
Yeah, and it motivates them too, the players.
Everybody else has eyes and they're seeing the same thing. I'm different just because I'm calling them out.
Right.
That goes from our coaches and everybody. I think it's important. It holds everybody accountable.
I think it's good to hold people accountable when they're doing well and when they're doing poorly.
Very good said. Very nicely said. So anything that you want to share with any young viewers out there if they want to get into this business or follow their passion?
So I always tell the people, if you like talking about sports, if you like watching sports, don't be afraid to go do it. Maybe go play that sport, pick up that racket, pick up that basketball. Maybe go for 5 minutes. You might not have the best setup. Grab your phone, start filming videos, get on iMovie, edit it a little bit. Anything you like to do, just go after it. That's what I'm going to say. Because you can always start anywhere. It doesn't have to be professional level. Start anywhere.
And don't be afraid to fail. If you start something and it doesn't work out, pick it up and try it again. Maybe a different approach. Maybe you don't have the right supporting cast, but obviously you do. You have your family and your dad's here today, and it's nice to see that your dad, you did come to help support, and it's huge because I have a daughter that's in sports world and does certain things, and support and around your family structure is huge.
I like to go back to my old videos sometimes, even old videos of me playing tennis or even doing the podcast, and I see that things don't start off great. My first few episodes have been completely different than the way I talk now, the way my episodes are now, even with tennis, the way I play now. So everything is going to take progress if you just keep on doing it. It doesn't have to be professional right away. Stay committed, and it'll work. And 4 years later, I'm still doing it.
Here you are, man. And it's a grind. When we first started doing the podcast, I was extremely almost reading a cue card and just following it. I was so nervous.
And now you're perfect at it.
Well, I don't know about perfect.
Now
but
you're solid at it.
Thank you, sir. But, it's one of those things you just have to. It's just you and I having a conversation.
Exactly.
And we're going to put it on social media and the internet and all that good stuff. People are going to watch it, like it or hate it. We're just having a conversation, man.
Sometimes I'll be on radio with Steve Kaplowitz, and it'll be like,
oh, I got a story for Cappy, too. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll go after this. And I'll be like, wait, did we have that conversation off air or on air? Just because it's so conversational and we flow so well on air together, so where we don't even know if we're off air or on air at that point.
Right, and that's how it should be.
Exactly.
Steve Kaplowitz, I've known that guy for about as long as Duke, too.
This will be a fun story.
This is a good one. So back in my day, back when I was a little bit older than you and I was invincible after my hockey days, we had a softball team called the Ice Dogs. And it was me and just some local dudes that play hockey, and we're playing softball. We needed a pitcher. Cappy said, hey, I can pitch. And I'm like, I'm looking at him like, there's no way you could pitch, dude. I don't even know if he can run the bases. And if Cappy was sitting here right now, I'd be saying the same thing. I love the guy to death. So
He
please
still
don't
plays
think,
the men's league.
please don't think I'm talking out of pocket on him. He's a great dude. So he comes out and he pitches, and he was pretty good at it, but I never thought, and then poor Cappy is a different type of person, very prim and proper, and then you have me and the rest of the hoodlums, you know what I mean? Showing up with a few cocktails in our hands, and Cappy's like, what am I doing here? I can't believe I'm playing with you guys. We're just showing you different things, Cappy. Don't worry about it.
Sometimes Steve, when I first started going air, Steve, I thought it was just going to be super, strict script, nothing like off script, off air. We'll go into shows now where he'll bring up completely different subjects and we'll just have fun with it. Maybe if it's inappropriate. I don't even care. It's on air now. It's his show. He's like, I've been doing this for 27 years. I can bring up what I want now. And it's funny talking to him about some of this stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely good at what he does too. There's another one that, he's helped the Rhinos out a lot. He's helped us individually out, with just his knowledge and the people that he knows, and just he's a great dude. And same with Duke Keith.
Great guy, Duke and Steve.
Yeah, good guy. I think I'm going to go on their show here in the next little while.
You should.
I went on there before, I don't know, a month or two ago, and it was a good time. Well, actually, when I met Cade.
Really? Yeah, I love doing with Cade, love doing with Steve, Adrian. They've got a great area over there. Been doing that with them for about 2 years now.
Adrian's a good dude, too. He does a great job, and Cade is well-spoken.
Definitely. I've been flowing great with him. We've been doing shows together. Steve and Adrian will go out of town. They'll give us the reins. I'll be hosting with Cade, and it just goes great.
That's good. Well, good for you, man. Good for you. But again, thank you for jumping on and finally getting to sit down and talk with you. You're such an inspiration, man, and I love the drive that you have and your knowledge. And keep doing what you're doing, man.
No, thank you so much. Glad to be here. Thank you, guys. Privileged to be on this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time, bud.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please remember to like and follow. And remember, take care, comb your hair, and keep the stick on the ice.